welcome to episode 2 of Roar More with Shore, where we talk with Pacific Athletic Director Adam Tschuor. Thanks for joining us. And Adam, it's great to have you. First of all, happy holidays. We're a couple of days away here as we record from Christmas, and kind of an interesting time with, we had our last basketball games the other day, both on the men's and women's side, and we're going to reemerge here from the Christmas break in conference season. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I know, man. I tell you, it's gone by like a flash. And first off, happy holidays to you too. I
Thank
feel
you.
like it's been a spell since I've seen you last with some of my other duties and travels. But no, excited. Been an exciting time, and and also just we touched on this last time. Just to reiterate, put it on the record. I did not come up with that name. I'm not that self-absorbed. I did.
Well, do you want to change it? We could change it if you want.
No, I mean, hey, I'll give all the credit in the world to our creative team and what they came up with there. So I'm not gonna undermine them and their creative function. So I'll give an attaboy, but it does just personally like a little cringy at times. Like, oh boy, like
Okay.
not about
Well,
me, guys, but no, it's all good. And you know me, man, I'm happy anytime I get to connect with you.
likewise, man. Likewise. We have experienced, and I want to lead off with this because this is for me A1 in terms of stories. I mean, we have experienced kind of a resurgence in men's basketball. I know in the last week there was that lopsided loss to BYU. We'll get into that in a minute. A clear top 10 team with resources that are just above and beyond what most programs would dream to have. But overall, Adam, 9-4. We talked last time about where this program has come from basically the doldrums.
Yeah.
And now you got a program that is well above 500 going into West Coast Conference play, and it's got some inertia even going into conference play.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm excited, with the direction of the program, and this is my third basketball season here at Pacific, and we've really just tried to step on the gas as much as we can, resource wise for us in terms of, not having a collective or any NIL, able to get, I don't remember what the exact number was, but when we had our Let's Go Tigers collective going, we were able to get, 300,000-400,000 somewhere in that ballpark, to kind of try to move along. And, we got into the millions this year. And so, a lot of good work, a lot of hard work, not just me, but our entire team, coaching staff, fundraisers, our external folks. And, we're able to get things going there. But I'd say I don't know. Do you ever do, and I always ask people, do you ever do the whole, like, look at the schedule and try to like maybe map out where you think things will go? So 9-4 was about what I thought would be. Now, I always think it went more chalk than I thought it would. I mean, it went almost perfectly chalk. I felt like maybe we would win a game that maybe on paper we weren't expected to win, like at Nevada or Cal, and then we'd lose one to somebody. Hey, you just have an off night, and Nichols or somebody comes up and grabs you. So it went pretty much chalk 9-4. I think the team. No, I don't know. What do you think, Jack? You've seen quite a bit more of them than I have, even with your travels with them on the road. I feel like they're starting to come together.
Yeah, I feel like they're starting to come together, which Dave always reiterates after these games. We'll talk most times when we win.
He better. I told him he got to talk to the fans after the games, man.
We talk with an assistant after losses, which is fine by me. I mean, Dave is a very emotional guy, and as long as we talk to someone, I'm cool. But Dave has hammered home the point that togetherness takes trust. And trust takes a long time to develop, which you don't have that time to develop anymore with the NIL and the transfer portal, which I know is something you've harped on quite a bit, and then a lot of other ADs. But, the fact that this team is coming together and does have kind of a modicum of trust in each other is a testament to the job that Dave has done. And I think there's tremendous buy-in. I mean, as evidenced by the fact that you mentioned, Cal and Nevada. Cal probably a game we shouldn't have won the way it played out, but Nevada's probably a game that we should have won. You have two bunnies there at the end, and unfortunately, I'll never forget that image of Jayon coming up just short after stealing the inbound pass. I know it's probably one we want to forget, but that should have been a win. That being said, Cal State Fullerton probably should have been a loss. Dave.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, Long Beach State. Long Beach State probably should have been a loss. And David mentioned that after the Fullerton game to me. He goes, look, we probably should have won the Nevada game, probably should have lost the Long Beach game, and it kind of washes out there. But I think there is buy-in, which I think is hard to get these days. And I just think that there is a cohesion that's going to serve this team really well once we get into conference play here in a week or so.
I do think that, yeah, I think one thing we just need to continue working on, and I know Dave harps on this with the guys, and when I get a chance to talk to him too, is confidence. I think that we've seen that, I think, pretty much play out through the whole season. First halves, guys coming out a little slow, a little laggard, and kind of lacking in some confidence in themselves, and that leads to missed shots and then all of a sudden, I don't know what's said in the locker room at halftime. I tried, that's a sacred space for me. I don't go in there. But they come out and all of a sudden, yeah, no, we know we can do this. And they'll go on, they'll start playing better. And that's what, because I mean, you look at all of them, Cal and Nevada, even that BYU at the start of that second half, we kind of came out well. And then, they top 10, they took over after that. But it's just, I think we need to bottle up what's ever said in that locker room at halftime and put it on the front end too, because we always come out. And I think some of it's you can go down, so I'll use Jaden Clayton, for instance. Here's a guy, all his 4 years at Maine, he was always just a facilitator. That was always his role with that team. He was never looked at as a scorer, but he can score. I mean, he can go on runs and he can get hot.
Dave wants him to score. Dave has mentioned that. You hear him scream at him during the game. He goes, "Jaden, score the ball." I mean, there's times he's got an open layup or a chance, to get to the hole, and instead he'll give it up. But I think that speaks to what you're saying, is he's wired to be a distributor.
Yeah, and just trying to get it in his head, no, man, you can pull the trigger, and you can have some confidence that you're going to, knock it down. And I think that Cayuse and Elias, I think a good number of our guys just they need they need to have a little bit more confidence in themselves that, hey, no, you can play at this level. You can get it done. You've shown it many times. Just believe it going into every half of every game, and we'll be just fine.
So I want to go back to BYU. You obviously had a little viral moment afterwards. We'll get into in a sec, but look, the BYU game, it ends up being, what was it, a 36-point loss or so. I don't know if I've ever seen in one half of basketball a team trail by 24. Pacific was down by 21 at the half. They got down by 24 right after halftime. Cut it to 9, and then at one point trailing by 41. That's a lot to happen in one half of basketball, But it speaks to a couple things. I mean, we talked about the resilience of the Pacific team, about how they come out of the locker room and they have an idea what they want to do. It also speaks to how fast BYU, a team like that, can get on you, and it can be done in a hurry. But what were your thoughts in the second half, as far as just the fight of the team in the second half to get it to 9 before things kind of went sideways? And I know you weren't there, but I know you were watching from afar.
Yeah. No, I was with doing my women's volleyball committee duties in Kansas City at the time. But no, I think that, for me, it was, kind of indicative of the resilience of our coaching staff and being able to say and motivate them in a situation where they probably didn't have much, sane rationale to be motivated, and yet they did. And again, all things being considered, I feel like we'll be fine in the end. But I think, every off-season change that happens in college sports, you try to look at what's changed and you try to build a schedule based on how things might go. And I was always a little leery about scheduling that game, just knowing full well the resources that, BYU, not just BYU, there's about a dozen or so schools right now that are just operating with levels of revenue and moving to revenue sharing as opposed to NIL. I would quantify these as schools that didn't have to fold their collectives because they have so much money coming in. They spend up to the $20.5 million cap, and they still need another means, their collectives, to continue paying their players. And not most schools, even 2/3 of Power 5 had to, or Power 4 had to, that their collectives are virtually meaningless. There's no reason to have them anymore. But yeah, they're one of a few schools that that have just, they're in a position where we're not even on the same planet.
They have infinity money, and I've talked about this with people. It's infinity money is what they have, and that's not even an exaggeration.
So I was always leery about it, but I tell you, and that was really what we maybe get into it now. The tweet, and again, I try to make
Well,
snarky, fun comments online and social media, and the walking bags of money reference was just, it was meant to be playful, but it really wasn't about BYU. It was about the state of our industry right now.
yeah, I
And
mean, let's like I want to get into that because I feel like there was some substance to that in terms of over the generations there have been buy games, right, where you might go to Duke and you get it handed
yeah,
to you. We've all seen it. We've also seen teams win those types of buy games. But now we're getting into an area where it's like, okay, if this buy game is predicated on resources,
mhm,
like you are literally being sent into the lion's den.
yeah, yeah. And I think
So
that's the one thing for me that was, and again, we can, I had some, and I did have end up having some good, I think, holistic back and forth with some BYU fans, just like when I called out Georgia Tech for tampering with Lamar Washington, and I had some Georgia Tech that did it on social media, and had some accolades from some people, including Sports Illustrated, for having done so, and most people keep quiet about that stuff, and I wasn't,
yeah, good on
and
you.
um, but you had some good back and forth with Georgia. Some were just kind of off the rails. I'd say in this instance, I had a lot more people reach out to me about this, but I ended up having some good conversations, and some of them was around the realities of the finances of scheduling, right? And buy games and guarantee games are always a part of it. No one really, again, like some people are like, what do you expect to win? Like, no one, every school, and I'd say 1 through 175, or maybe 1 to 200 of 364 Division I programs operate in this space where you're spending between $80 and $110,000 on either buying an opponent or getting that money in return as a guarantee. It's just how many times you do it is the difference, right, between schools. So, like, for instance, at Dayton, we never took guarantees from anybody. We weren't in that market. We didn't need the money,
Yeah.
and we would get, but in turn, to get winnable games, we would buy 5-6 opponents a year. At Pacific, we are in a position where, it's part of our scheduling matrix to go and have 3 guarantees, where a higher caliber talent team is paying us that 90, 100, 105, whatever the case may be, $1,000 to come in. And it's going to be a challenge. And then we're also doing it on the other end 2 or 3 times a year as well. And really that money's just a pass through. The money, we get the money from BYU. We give it to Nichols. Like that's just how it works. And all of those realities. And I think this was the difference for me. I've seen it on both sides my entire career. I remember being with Ball State football at Iowa, and it was a slaughter. I mean, they destroyed us. I remember at Dayton, and this wasn't a bye game, but we were playing them in the postseason, the NCAA tournament. We played a Syracuse team, and Boeheim just absolutely, crushed us. And I'm talking about box scores. I had a few BYU fans send me some box scores, and they were like, "Hey, but look at what Abilene Christian did." I'm like, "Okay, well, my point."
Yeah.
Good research. You found a box score. It could have been 5, it could have been 50. It's how I felt about the game from start to finish, after and while it was going on. And even like Arkansas last year, which was a guarantee game for us. We were at Arkansas, and we cut it to 9 at one point there in the second half, and then they marched on beyond it. I didn't come away from that game feeling like, what the heck are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like, but the entire BYU, I was sitting there just thinking, I might as well be playing the Utah Jazz. What am I even doing?
Mm-hmm.
What is this right now? And I think that was partially guilt. I had some apprehension about scheduling the game in the first place, and confidence, like we talked about earlier, it's a fine line, right? And I blame myself for having okayed scheduling that game. We could have got that money from 100 other schools if that's what we were, were scheduling towards. And and I think that was my underlying final point was, hey, and they're talking about it on the CFP side right now. There's probably 20 to 30 football programs that are spending an amount of money that is just beyond approach, and it's a topic of conversation. I don't think it's as many in basketball. I say it's somewhere between 10 and 20, but it's I just don't have any interest in playing teams like that. And at what I can control, I should say, what I can control, and what I can't control is my non-conference schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I can't control who does what in our conference. Gonzaga wants to spend 8 figures on their basketball team. I can't control that. They're in our conference, at least for now. Got to play. They're in our league. we're fortunate enough to make postseason and I have to go up against a team like that. I can't control that. I don't set the bracket. But I can control my non-conference schedule. And yeah, that's not a game I'm going to schedule in the future.
But then what do you do? So what's the way forward for Pacific? So, I mean, we're going back years now, right? So 20 years ago, Pacific cracked the top 25. Nobody wanted to come to Stockton and play Pacific.
Sure.
Certainly, it was a challenge to find teams to buy us at that point, because chances are, I mean, my first game as the voice of the Tigers, we went to UTEP, who bought us, and we beat them, for 95 grand. And that was the first game. And I will never forget. I mean, it was like, that was the expectation going into that game for Pacific, because that's where the program was at the time. I mean, we're talking 2009, 10. So then what's the way forward? I mean, BYU, yeah, sure, they're spending way more than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
The reality of the matter is they're also, paying a pretty good amount, and it's an easy trip. It's a regional trip. It's a former conference team as recently as a couple of years ago, which also I think, which stings, to see a former conference member, at this level, and here you are, and now after that game, you feel like you're at that level. But then how do you schedule? Because you talk to coaches, it is the hardest thing in the world to schedule. And not everybody is out there wanting to give you a game. So you kind of have to, at times, take what you can get. So what's the way forward with that?
Yeah. And, I'll give a good example. So we're always working on scheduling, and, myself coming from Dayton, which was a place where the administration, spends a lot more time on scheduling. A lot of schools, my peers, don't spend any time on it. It's just exclusively with the coaches. It's too much of an economic engine for our department. So yeah, just like at Dayton, I spend a lot of time on it with Dave and staff. And, it's really just about being smart. So like one thing, we're buying less opponents, and we're looking for more home and homes in the middle, trying to take advantage of some regional. That's why you're seeing Long Beach. That's why you're seeing, Fullerton, some old Big West foes, some regional foes that aren't bottom of the barrel, but they're not top of the barrel too. So we're trying to find more, less 300 plus that we're buying, less top 10 that maybe would be more willing to give us money, and park ourselves more in that 50 to 150 range net wise. Now, a couple problems with that. One is because of the transfer portal, wholesale rosters turning over. You could talk to somebody right now and you think they're a 150 and they end up being a 50, or you think they're a 150 and they end up being a 325. And so you just can't predict it as much anymore. We're like, so we're returning a trip with Sam Houston next year that we owe them back. We were supposed to play it a few years ago, and it just hasn't worked out for either of our scheduling matrices to do it. So we're committed to seeing that through. And we're like, hey, what are you, where are you interested in maybe getting the bang for your buck while you're out there, not just going to Texas for one game? So yeah, we're talking to guarantee opponents, and pretty much we're having conversations right now with every power conference school that's out there. I just told Dave after that game, again, I'm kind of sticking to my guns on this, playing these teams that just have, unassailable resources. And I was like, hey, and I put these two, I won't talk about the other ones that we're talking to, but, Houston and Texas Tech, no one can deny that they're in that bucket of programs.
Yep.
And I was just like, I'm not doing those games. I'm just not doing it. But I will reserve judgment. As I mentioned earlier, I look at it in the off season of how the season hasn't played out yet. We have analysts that we partner with to help us crunch the numbers, and either reinforce or poke holes into how we feel about things. I've spoken a lot on how I feel about it right now. I could get into the off season. One of our analysts comes to me and says, "Hey, Adam, I know you don't want to do it, but you playing that game gave you a 50 point or a 50 spot bump in the net. So you got to play it." Okay, I might hate it, but I might not have a choice metrically, in terms of net and being a realistic at-large contender or postseason contender. So, I might have to suck it up at some point, but again, that game just can't. I came away with it with a feeling I've never had in my career anywhere, and I think it's just showed every year since July of 21 when transfer portal came online and NIL is a real thing, and every year just the gap I feel like kept widening every year between the haves and have-nots. There's always been haves and have-nots, but the gap kind of kept widening. I don't feel like this latest iteration of change, which was post-house settlement, moving to revenue sharing and roster caps and all that stuff. I feel like we gained 1 through 364. I feel like we actually gained ground on most of the schools with what we did resource wise and what we were able to come to the table
Interesting.
with. But while we gained ground on 20 through 364, that 1 through 20 or 1 through 15, that top 5%, whatever it might be, just shot through the moon. And it's just a Premier League, and we're all just the reserves. And so is what it is at this point. We'll have to wait through the season. And again, had some good back and forth with BYU fans, some BYU fans on it. Others was like, I'll no reason to keep that rancor going. But it's and not just BYU fans, other fans that were like commenting. And that's why I deleted the original tweet, was because this weird influx of other schools fans are kind of started commenting and being really vulgar and vile. And I was just like, hey guys, this is not, if we want to talk to business, college sports and stuff, hey, great. I love it. It's a big chunk of my life, but let's clean it up here, guys. And
yeah,
nip that in the bud, but again, kept the conversation going, which I'm happy to do. I'll talk about our business any day of the week.
Well, first of all, it's refreshing to see someone in your position speak their mind. I think we need more of that, and it's unfortunate that you put that kind of stuff out there, and everybody wants to pile on and make it something.
I will say, I had one BYU fan say it pretty nicely, and it's a good word for it. He's like, he was like saying something to the effect of like, "Hey, I see what your point is, but you just put it in a really knee-jerk, tacky way." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's fair. That's what I call it, crass, tacky." It was pretty tacky and wasn't funny, and I get it. I apologize for that. I would never want to, offend a passionate fan. Without the fans, we don't have any kind of industry. But no, the overarching point was the health of our industry, and it's not in a healthy place at all right now.
No doubt. Well, to wrap up basketball, and then we're going to move on and talk about a couple other sports. But I'm going to ask you, looking at your crystal ball, we're 9-4 going into conference play. Not going to ask you to prognosticate what the record might be in league, because none of us know, which I think is really the joy of this time.
I'll tell you offline. I don't want anything standing on the record. I'll tell you offline.
Okay. Okay. One time, I actually have a piece of paper saved somewhere. Stoudemire one time had me write down what our league record was going to be, and I saved it, and he signed it. It actually came to pass, which is I'll never forget.
Nice.
Yeah. So maybe we'll do something like that. But
yeah, we can do that.
If Pacific does have a good run in conference play, and say maybe there's a postseason type tournament available, and you have for the first time in years a really positive season, how do you keep that momentum going into next year? And how do you start from now, I guess, building on some of the successes that this program could potentially have, considering, the last 5 years have been really tough?
Yeah, it's really, just comes down to resources and retention, right? We don't, we have, we're losing a good chunk of guys, 6 to eligibility ending. Their tenures are up, they're graduating. And, not lost on us that there'll be a few guys that will leave to go, look for other opportunities elsewhere. There's a handful of guys right now that I know some of our fans have been talking about, saying like, hey, why don't we see so-and-so? Why don't we see so-and-so? The intention right now is for those guys to redshirt, to preserve their eligibility so we can continue developing them. Now, all things, we're, don't have a crystal ball in that sense. Injuries, who knows what could happen in the future. So that might change for some guys, might not. But, we're trying to be pretty intentional about that. And yeah, there's 2 or 3 guys that would be returning in a typical year that, we know we have to continue to invest in to keep them here and to retain them. And we have a lot of all the, they're in fine academic programs, great relationships with our coaching staff. They have all the reason in the world to stay, but, this is 2025, soon to be 2026. And, the almighty dollar will play a role. And so we have to be smart with that, continue to find guys that will fit what coach is looking to do. I think that's the biggest difference between year 1 and year 2. Coach will probably even tell you, like, his first year here with that 9-win total record that we had a much more athletic team than, especially at the top, than what we have now. but we actually have a team now that actually listens to coach and does what he wants them to do, play and play. And there's hits and misses, every now and then, but they're just way more on the same page. And there's more talented people that we moved away from that would have cost us maybe a little bit more money, in some cases maybe more less, but probably were more talented than others, but we knew wouldn't work. So we have to continue filling the holes in the right way. I think we have to continue doing the work, that we did over the last two years, 18 months of continuing to grow resources. We'll just need more resources. That'll take the Stockton community. That'll take our donors. That'll take being smart with, how we're spending our money in our department. And we've built a great system where we're helping feed it. We're growing, adding sports, that's growing our coffers, our revenue, while at the same time helping campus. It's a very unique, in terms of the interplay between higher ed and a college athletics department. It's a very unique system. Doesn't work for everybody. Just works for private high tuition schools, really. But we're in a healthy space there. So I'm excited about what the addition of those sports will mean down the line for our other sports, including men's basketball. And we'll just have to keep getting creative. I think that'll be the big off-season question, right? Does the gap, I feel like we gained a little ground. Does the gap grow more? Does the 1 through 20 that's unassailable right now become 1 through 50? We'll have to see. But without any kind of federal government intervention or something like that, the market will play out on its own, and we'll just keep control what we can control and not worry about the uncontrollables. And we'll keep trying to grow our resources, give coach every advantage he can out there on the recruiting trail. And, we'll see where everything lies, but we can't do it without our fans. And so we got some big events coming up here, try to, celebrate the successes and continue to galvanize the community around that. So I look forward to announcing those soon. And, as our attendance keeps rising and we keep adding new corporate partners, we've signed our 2 largest corporate partners we've ever had in our history consecutively in the last 6 months. So we'll continue to look to grow those too. So, good things going here. It's just a matter of, is it enough? And we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I'm damn excited about the start of conference play. I mean, is it the 28th and the 30th at San Diego at LMU?
Been hard to judge, right? I mean, like, you feel like you got somebody kind of figured out, and then USD goes and beats a really good UCSD team. And you're just like, oh, okay. Like, what's going on here? And this is, I mean, top to bottom, I mean, Seattle just keeps like killing it right now. And I mean, I think the league's in a really healthy spot, but every game is going to be super competitive.
All right. Well, we got a few minutes. we got a few minutes here, and I want to wrap up with a couple of notes on volleyball and soccer. Volleyball, you are, I think, about to make a hire for the volleyball program. So we have men's and women's with both. So
as we're recording this, we haven't announced it yet, but by the time the public sees this, it'll be old news. So really excited about Jeff Hendershot, men's volleyball alum of ours, who's been at Laverne for the last 13 years. And most recently, just lost out in the national title game, the D3 national title game to UW Oshkosh. And they were this close. And he had National Player of the Year, D3, Maya Ray. It was like watching their games. I'm like, how on earth did you get Maya Ray? I mean, she could have played at any school, maybe less minutes, but I mean, she could have played at any school in Division I. She was just a 4-time D3 All-American, first team All-American. I was just like, it was really impressive. And, he's, going to do a lot of great things for us.
And he's an alum.
It's funny you mentioned that because, I'm obviously really excited about Andreas as well, our men's soccer coach. I actually have a different take on alums. And, again, I love our alums. But when I'm hiring a coach, I actually kind of usually go into the hiring process looking at it like it's a negative, which I know probably seems counterintuitive, right?
No, not at all.
Well, I feel like not so much. I mean, it's all about expectations, right? And, in some cases, one example I'll use is hiring internally, right? You have a really successful coach. So I'm just going to make the associate or assistant coach, the number 2, the head coach, and we'll just keep it rolling. And it's like, oh, that can be a negative because outside circles, fans, alumni, their expectation is, oh, all right, we're, the team's still together. We're just going to keep it rolling. And those external pressures and expectations can really have an effect on that staff and what they do. I think for the coaches, hiring an alum they put a lot of pressure on themselves. This place I really care about. I love this place. I want it to succeed. And they put so much pressure on themselves. They end up kind of making some bad decisions along the way. And so when I have an alum, hey, happy to talk to alums. I don't do courtesy interviews. Anybody I ever talk to in an interview process is a legit candidate. It's something I always try to park. I think your average fan's like, oh, an alum, that's a check in the pro column. It's actually usually a check in the con column, and that's something candidates just have to address. The other thing
there's a quote. I think is it Gibran who's attributed to this quote, but it's prophet is not a prophet in his own land, and it's
so
kind of that.
If I need an eloquent quote, Zack Bayrouty, man, he's got it.
But that's right. That's what you're talking about,
it's absolutely
right?
True.
I mean, it can be really hard to come back and do that. And I remember talking with I think Stoudemire about maybe the Arizona job. He goes, my legacy is there at Arizona. My legacy is my legacy, and I think he kind of wanted to leave it at that. And then some alums have that thought going into a potential job opportunity.
Well, I think the other thing too, just to note, I've never hired a D3, at least I don't recall a D3 coach. I mean, not Division III is terrific. It's just, last time Jeff was in Division I was a decade plus ago, and D1 was different then. It certainly is different now. It's just completely different universes. And so, but my God, I tell you, he had an answer. He had an answer for that knocked my socks off. I mean, it was very quickly addressed, answered. All right, forget it, because that's not a concern for me anymore. And one of the best interviews I've ever had.
Wow.
Ever. I mean, staff, coaches. I mean, President Callahan even said the same thing. It's one where this guy is prepared for this job in a big way, and he'll really wow some people.
Cool. Well, we could take a short break. We got one more topic we want to address. We'll take a short break and we'll come back and we'll wrap it up just here in 1 minute. We're back here with Adam to wrap it up. We talked about the women's coaching search and Adam, anything on the men's side to update us on?
Yeah, no. So it's funny, you go and you hire a men's volleyball alum to coach our women's team, and it's just kind of serendipitous, I guess, that we brought the men's volleyball program back. Really excited about it, and so we're getting that started. Right now, got a great crop of candidates. We're going to start some phone interviews here. Right after Christmas, try to get that stuff all hammered out before New Year's. That might be a little aggressive, but great core. That's one thing our men's and women's volleyball programs are history. We have produced a ton of coaches. I mean, there is just a lot of coaches out there in the volleyball space. I think that's a testament to all the great people that we've been able to produce. And so as we talked about, I was at the women's volleyball national title, or national championship as a committee member, which was a great experience in and of itself. But the AVCA convention, the Volleyball Coaches Association convention, which is the governing NGB for coaches for all levels of volleyball, and that's women's indoor, that's beach, that's men's indoor, and so had some time to be able to go over there and interact with some people, and that was a really worthwhile experience for both searches.
Sure. And specifically on the women's side, I mean, there's got to still be, in terms of nationally, there's some cachet with the Pacific job, I would imagine. I mean, this is a 2-time national championship program. You mentioned the people that it's produced. I mean, Olympians. This is a storied program, and I feel like should be a coveted spot to be.
Yeah, no, and that's one. There's 347 Division I schools that play women's volleyball. There's only 12 that have ever won a national title. And of those 12, there's only 3 that are not power conference schools, and that's Hawaii, Long Beach, and us. And so, it's got a lot of cachet to it. That's a good word. People like John Dunning certainly help.
Yeah.
Obviously not just with his continued activity with us. And John was actually a part of our interview process on the women's side, and I'm going to hope to have him continue to help me with the men's side as well. And so that has, you just have to mention his name to volleyball coaches in there. Like they
Yeah,
get real excited
big time.
real quick because he's just such a luminary and just an awesome person to talk to and pick his brain on things. And so, but yeah, you don't have to look very far to find a Pacific alum in this industry. And it's funny for me personally too because here I am at the volleyball Final Four, and Pitt, who was one of the finalists, is led by Dan Fisher, who's a love of ours and played men's volleyball for us. And then on the more personal side, Craig Skinner and Kelly Sheffield, Kentucky and Wisconsin's head coaches, are from the same hometown as me, Muncie, Indiana. And so it was kind of, and John Chondell was an assistant for Kelly, same thing. And so it was just kind of, personally, it hit a lot of high notes, but what a great championship experience. I got to tell you, I think it's a civic duty for administrators to serve on NCAA committees because they're long. It's a big commitment. It's a lot of time away from your family, but it is a worthwhile experience. And have you been to Kansas City ever?
Not spend a lot of time, just driven through it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been probably 7 or 8 years since I've been to Kansas City, and I guess winning a couple Super Bowls just real. I mean, I was like, it was not the Kansas City.
I'll tell you what, the Kansas City airport, you've flown into the old one, right? It was
my gosh, yeah,
I called it
that
the
was bad. That was like top
doom.
10
Like
worst airports you could fly into.
It was awful. Like that was always a place you want to avoid on a layover. And then last year, I forget we were coming from Mizzou, the Mizzou game, the Mizzou Arkansas trip, but we flew out of Kansas City, and that airport, just the airport tells you where the city's going. I mean, the airport's amazing.
I thought I got flown into the wrong city. I was like, because it is gorgeous. I mean,
yeah,
well built. I mean, I think they got about every barbecue joint in town has a foothold in that place. And so you're just like, wow. And then you go downtown, all their old, hotels that most cities have mothballed are all redone in retro style and everything, new developments. And that T-Mobile Center, by the way, is something else. I mean, they don't.
Yeah.
That is as legit a facility as I've ever seen, and they don't have a standing tenant. There's no like major.
Really?
There's no like protein that's their home. They only exist for one-off events, and it's up there with like Barclays Center in terms of the quality of the venue and the staff and everything.
Wow.
So it was a good experience. I feel like it was helpful for us in our searches, so I got some university benefit out of it too, and saw some great championships and. So I was, but happy to be back with the Tigers so I can hang my hat there for a while and get back to, railing about the state of the industry and just,
what you do best, right?
I'm giving that up for as a New Year's resolution. I'm just gonna be quiet about it for a while. But no, I think
okay.
No, I won't. I'll keep quiet about it.
My ear's always open. You come to the men's games and just pop a seat next to me, and I'm always willing to listen to what you got to say.
No, that's great. And again, I think just to kind of put a bow on that, I think that hopefully and again, I think the difficulty I have is just with leadership in our world, whether that's in the government or with more senior leaders in our industry, the narrative that they've just kind of failed to spend to the benefit. Professionally, I care about two things, and one is specific. I care about our student athletes, our fans, our alums, our institutions, what's in the best interest of Pacific. Close second to that is I care about what our product is, and that is the young men and women who walk across the stage with a degree. And it's not what some guy in the middle of nowhere is willing to pay an extra $10.99 a month on his cable bill for some sports package. That's not our end product. It's important. It's a part of what we do, but it's still those young men and women. And hopefully some people will understand that as opposed to a free market, what we do and who we produce as individuals with our educational experience is, some of the top flight people that are produced today. I mean, outside Rhodes Scholars and serving our country in the armed forces, I don't know if college sports, there's probably nothing that produces a better quality of person, in my opinion, than college sports. Mm-hmm. And if we continue to let the top 5% we have no guardrails at all right now. And you're a baseball guy, you'd appreciate this analogy. Baseball, would you say baseball is probably the most unfair professional sport in terms of just what they have or don't have in terms of rules and stuff?
It's an interesting question. Probably. Yeah,
Well, I mean, because
probably.
even because you go to like the Moneyball movie, right? There's rich teams, there's
Yeah.
poor teams, and there's
Yeah. I mean,
um, and every
with,
sports entity in the world has something to help balance competitive equity, right?
mhm.
And so baseball probably has the fewest guardrails.
Yeah, you
They
have the
have some,
Dodgers who own 90% of the top talent in the game. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, so look at baseball. But they still got a luxury tax. If you're
Hmm.
going to spend at that level, you gotta pay. And they still got rules around free agency and stuff. And we got nothing. We have absolutely no rules right now. It is the absolute Wild West. You can do whatever you want, and without some kind of guardrails, yeah, that top 5% is going to continue to pull away. And then what's going to happen? The schools behind are going to have to make decisions, and probably from a self-interested standpoint, which I don't blame any institution for being self-interested. I would avail myself of the same opportunities if I had access to those resources. Um, but they're going to make decisions that, I don't think you have to go too far down the rabbit hole to know that that's going to come at the detriment of opportunities for producing more high quality young men and women.
Well, and you are talking about the majority of schools. I mean, these schools who control most of the money, they're in the minority. I mean,
Yep.
you're talking about, us lumped in with the Cleveland States of the world, right? Who and
Mhm.
those make up what, 75-80% of college
Yep.
athletics at the Division I level. The football schools are just a different animal. And
Yeah.
so you are talking about the majority, which is kind of ironic, not the minority.
Well, and I think that's the one thing. I think if anybody's got to be most fearful of what's coming next, it's going to be, let's just look at those Power Four leagues and look at the bottom half of spenders in those leagues, and they're all going to have to make decisions to try to keep up, and that those decisions are going to come around cutting sports, taking away scholarship
Mhm.
opportunities, laying off staff. I think the next thing you might see proposed to go is the shrinking of sports requirements. You have to have a minimum of at least 14 sports to be a Division I program. That goes away or it shrinks to like six. I mean, all bets are off at that point. But we can see in a lot of public schools in those leagues. Again, I'm not trying to call anybody out, but it's all. I mean, the financial woes at like Arizona or Cal, like you can just Google search it and pull up articles around the position they put themselves in historically. I mean, the last 10, 20 years to try to keep up. And, they've gotten themselves into a pretty rough spot in
Yep.
terms of debt and what they owe back to their institution or the state. And that's just now. And if that gets exponentially worse, then, again, I think it's for the health of young men and women, trying to, again, get what is one of the best experiences you could ever find. It's why businesses line up to hire our student athletes, right? I mean, because they're just so well prepared to tackle life, leaving such a broad and robust experience. It's going to come at the expense of kids, and that's what keeps me up at night. So
No,
I'll
no
probably
doubt.
keep whinging and whining in a humorous way on social media about it, but I hope that if anything, that message gets across to people that are decision makers to know that, hey, this is a public good worth protecting.
We could talk about this for a while. I would love to talk about it for a while. We're gonna wrap it up with the guy who doesn't enjoy hiring alums and talk about an alum that you just hired in Andres
He didn't
Ochoa
say that. No.
for soccer.
Yeah.
But
No, Andreas
Andres
is,
is
yeah, that's,
just getting his feet wet. So I just want you to give us a quick update on how men's soccer is going and how
yeah.
Andres is doing.
No, he's doing good. He's going to get going here. He's working on building the staff right now, bringing in a few guys at the break, just to kind of have a competitive spring ball season. The guys are all super excited. We actually, in this day and age, you make a change and you're used to half your squad going in the portal. And we've had a handful, but it's less than what I can count on one hand. So that's usually a good indication that the staff's, the players are fired up, they're ready to go. I think, he'll be a breath of fresh air for this department in terms of the energy and enthusiasm that he has, and happy and excited for that, the future of that program, and get us back to where we were. I mean, right before, leading up to that, we were making NCAA tournaments, 3 straight years, 3 straight NCAA tournament wins, and it's a super competitive sport early. That's the other thing that's that differentiator. I think women's volleyball has been a little bit on the decline for us. We got to, as a league, we got to get better at getting it back on the upcline, to being a multi-bid sport. But men's soccer, and women's soccer too, if anything, they've just been on the uptick. I mean, at one point this past year, we had 3 top 10 teams at the same time. It was just like, oof. And so, we got work to do there, but with the right community support and resources, we'll be just fine.
Cool. Cool. It's a pleasure, Adam. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Any big plans for the holidays?
No, just going to be here with the kids. And then 2 days after we fly down to San Diego. So I'm going to get ready for that trip. And are you going to be on that trip?
I will be on that trip. Yes.
Cool.
Bringing some family with me too. So that'll be a fun, a fun New Year's. We're going to fly down to San Diego and then drive up to LA. Going to meet with some donors along the way.
Cool.
So you'll see me certainly at the games. But yeah, we have a lot of great, friends of the program that are going to be at both that San Diego and the LMU game. Kick us off right as we get into the new year.
Awesome. I'm going to end it with the Tigers have won a bunch of games in San Diego. They haven't won a ton of road games since joining the WCC, but San Diego has been a place where Pacific's been able to go in and win, even in the leaner years. And I think it's a great trip to start league play, considering this team's 9-4.
Always tough. You roll the dice, schedule turns out, and you're like, God, you just assume maybe start at home. But yeah, when I felt, again, there'll be tough teams to go up against. They've each had the chance. The LMU got off to a hot start to start the year. San Diego of late's been playing really well, really coming together. But I like our Tigers. I like our Tigers in these matchups.
I do too. Merry Christmas, man. Happy holidays. EJ, thank you very much for producing.
No, absolutely. Creative team. Great job as always. And, happy to get some more content out to the fans for the New Year's. You Tiger fans out there, happy holidays to you. We'll keep pumping out content for you. Zach and I will continue having good conversation. We should probably look to bring some guests on here.
I would like that.
Yeah, we can hit it up. We're going to keep getting this more into podcast style. We're going to get the microphones hanging in our faces. And
yeah, we got to go in person next time. This is giving me all the COVID vibes here with doing the Zoom thing. So
well, I was really eager to get some content out of our fans before the holidays hit, because we're going to have
totally
there where it's going to be hard to get together. But yes, in person next time.
Cool. We'll see you next time on Roar More with Shore.
Thank you, guys.